My fiancé Luke held a knife to my throat on the day we were trying on wedding dresses. In a low voice, he said, "Rachel, I'm sorry." Then he made a video call to my brother George. After calling 3 times, George finally answered. Luke casually positioned me directly in the center of the video, the blade pressing against my artery, his handsome face twisted with a bloodthirsty cruelty. "Bring her back, or you'll be collecting your sister's body, her." Before I could even begin to process Luke's actions, let alone feel sorrow, the image of that girl flashed through my mind. Her name was Tracy, rumored to be Luke's mistress. She had openly challenged me at my school. "I've been with Luke for 3 years, and we'll get married sooner or later. What's the point of clinging to your engagement, planning to live alone forever?" Tracy said with disdain, clearly enjoying herself before she walked away. Outside, a Porsche Cayenne waited for her. A scene of grandeur. I watched her leaving, a mocking smile on my face. Actually, she was wrong. It wasn't me who wanted to get married. Luke was the one always bringing up the engagement. He had wanted to marry me not just for a day or two, maybe it was for a business alliance. What else could it be? Surely he couldn't still be thinking about our first love. However, first love, it seems, was something only I couldn't forget. Tracy did not break my defense, but she infuriated my best friend. She contacted my brother George, hoping he would stand up for me, but when the call connected, we heard George and Tracy's voices. "Scolded my sister, are you satisfied now?" It turned out, the owner of the Cayenne was my brother. I hadn't recognized the car at first, probably because George never picked me up. Yes, George liked Tracy too, but he was more noble than Luke. He wanted Tracy to be legitimately and happily married. He pushed Luke multiple times to marry Tracy and always opposed my marriage to Luke. Unfortunately, all his efforts were in vain. This marriage was about the interests of both our families. Not everyone is as love-struck as George, certainly not Luke. When the Andrews and Collins families finalized the wedding date, George publicly confronted Luke. "Luke, are you being fair to Tracy?" In front of the elders, Luke just smiled. "Who's Tracy? I only know Rachel." Luke was better at reading the room. That's why my father favored him, but now, I never expected that even someone as reserved as Luke could be so impulsive. When his beloved mistress was taken from him, he didn't hesitate to put a knife to his fiancée's throat. The emotional wounds within me expanded to their limits. I stared at George, my pupils dilated in shock. He was my brother, my own brother. Tears inevitably started falling. On the other end of the video call, George glanced at me, his brows furrowed. A trace of pain crossed his handsome face. I thought he would change his mind, but in the next moment, his gaze shifted away as he simply stated, "Anyway, Luke, I'm not going to give Tracy back to you." That's right, he took Tracy and never planned to return her. "Luke, you're such a jerk. You're about to marry my sister, and you still fantasize about keeping Tracy. What do you think Tracy is?" His words were all about Tracy, not a mention of Rachel. My heart sank to the bottom. I couldn't help but remember our childhood. Back then, our mother was still alive. She would ask George gently, "Will you protect your sister when you grow up?" George promised without hesitation, "Of course, I will." Then mother asked, "What if she encounters a bad person?" George answered without hesitation, "I'll hide her away and go fight the bad guys myself." Compared to now, it all felt so ironic. My hands gradually dropped, and the unresolved psychological wounds suddenly erupted. It was as if I heard a voice from the abyss. "Nobody loves you, your brother doesn't love you, your fiancé doesn't love you either. Just die. It won't hurt if you're dead. Go see your mom, okay?" I just wished Luke would kill me quickly, to end it all. But then, with a thud, the Swiss knife fell onto the carpet, the sound muffled. Luke's voice was faint. "I'm sorry." I ignored it. It didn't matter anymore. No one's apologies mattered now. I just carefully adjusted the wedding dress I was wearing. I've heard that people wear a shroud when they die. That shroud probably isn't as pretty as a wedding dress, right? While I was pondering, Luke had already left. He was busy looking for Tracy, indifferent to doing me any harm. Fortunately, he didn't take the Swiss knife with him. The blade was sharp. I picked it up, quietly telling myself, "It won't hurt." I often heard that after death, people visit a place they long for. So my spirit came to this familiar little bungalow. This is where I was born. I stayed here until I was 14, always with my mother. Returning to the bungalow, I felt happy. I lay on the big pink bed, making a peaceful expression. After all, I had been very unhappy in life. I didn't want to be a restless ghost. But soon, click, the door opened. Strange, someone else was coming here. I opened my eyes and was instantly stunned. I saw a tall figure followed by a delicate one. It was George and Tracy. This room is the largest and gets the most sunlight. You stay here. George pulled Tracy by the wrist into the room, then yanked open the curtains of the floor-to-ceiling window. With a whoosh, the bright sunlight filled the room. The sunlight I feared made me immediately hide under the bed. Tracy stood against the light, turning around to resemble a glorious golden painting. George was mesmerized. Rachel. He seemed to call my name. No, I must have heard wrong. The midday sun was scorching, almost obliterating me with its heat. It hurt so badly. Fortunately, Tracy had an eye discomfort, so George ended up drawing the curtains. I could finally catch my breath. When I emerged from under the bed, I saw Tracy's high heels on my carpet. This is your sister's room, wouldn't she mind? I scoffed coldly, asking what she already knew. Of course, I was annoyed. The room was personally decorated by my mother. The embroidery on the pillows was also sewn by her, yet tonight Tracy would be lying there. Tracy glanced at the photos on the wall, a trace of envy fleeting across her eyes. Your sister went to Europe at such a young age. She's really fortunate. People really are different, George said, his eyes flickering with sorrow. After a moment of thought, he took down my photo. This used to be our house. She won't be coming. He paused, his expression turned somber. She doesn't have the right. It turned out George had always resented me. He was silent over the years, but that didn't mean he had forgotten. Back when our father had an affair, I urged our mother to divorce. I still remember how he yelled at me. Mom is the soft-hearted one. Dad has already admitted his mistake. She would definitely forgive him. It's all because of you. Did you spend years studying just to break up this family? His shouting stunned me. I didn't understand. Dad hurt Mom, causing her immense pain. Why shouldn't they divorce? Should women in marriage deserve to be hurt by men? I just wanted Mom to be happy, not always crying in secret, not to endure, not to relent. But in the end, Mom didn't see the dawn of a new day. She died. George loathed me to death. He called me foolish. Mom is like a daughter flower. How can a daughter live independently? You killed her. It was your absurd ideas that killed her. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but indeed Mom died after the divorce. Maybe it wouldn't have happened if she hadn't divorced. The more I thought about it, the more guilty I felt. I told George that I wouldn't talk nonsense anymore. George pushed me away, furiously shouting, "It's too late. Mom is already dead. Can you ever be at peace?" His words seemed like a prophecy. So, I never had peace afterward, and since then, I've restrained my temper. I endured. I relented. Even after Luke had a passionate affair with another woman and proposed to me to maintain a marriage alliance, I acted as if nothing had happened and agreed with a smile, like a doormat. Mom died. I lived like Mom. George, holding the photo frame, also remembered those events, feeling agitated and inexplicably regretful. Back then, was it really Rachel's fault? It's been too long. He didn't want to remember anymore. What does it matter if it was a mistake, in Rachel's eyes? He wasn't a good brother anymore. Maybe that's for the best. Just right. Seeing him silent, Tracy lowered her head and bit her lip. Is it really okay for Luke to treat your sister like that? It's my fault. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have faced such a choice. Luke, how could he pull a knife on his fiancé? He didn't have to do this for me. Halfway through her words, Tracy's eyes began to redden, as if she felt terribly sorry for me. However, I felt quite uncomfortable hearing it. Don't worry, even if the sky falls, Luke wouldn't hurt her. George's expression was calm, his worry fleeting. Really? Tracy's eyes dimmed, murmuring to herself, he would never hurt Rachel. All right, perhaps I'm overthinking it. George didn't notice the change in her expression. His gaze lingered on the chandelier, which swayed as if someone was sitting on it. Impossible. He must be overthinking. It must be Rachel coming to mind again, as a child. She was so thin that once during a game of hide and seek, she hit atop the chandelier and almost fell trying to get down. George asked her if she dared to do it again. With her little face lifted, she said, "I dare to do it next time. If you make me unhappy, I'll climb up again, to scare you to death." Rachel was bold and defiant as a child. The siblings were close once. It was him who changed. Thinking this, George's fingers suddenly trembled. What was Rachel doing now? Was she upset? Should he call her? They were siblings. It was natural for him to care about his sister. I sat atop the chandelier, looking down at George. It had been a while since I had looked at him closely. Actually, our features don't resemble each other at all. Had he realized that we weren't biological siblings, and that's why he started treating me poorly? I swayed, watching George hand a tissue to the tearful Tracy, warm and gentlemanly, just like the brother I remembered. Then, sounds of a scuffle came from downstairs. Luke had arrived. His bodyguards clashed with George's. Hearing the noise, George stepped out, resting one hand on the second-floor railing, and spoke from above. "Aren't you supposed to be taking wedding photos with Rachel, always playing both sides, aren't you?" His hand on the railing tensed. George despised Luke more than anyone. He had let him marry Rachel. He had everything already. Why come after Tracy? George was furious inside. But his face remained calm. "If you come over, Rachel won't be pleased." Hearing this, Luke slightly lifted his chin, scoffing disdainfully. "You're quite the meddler. You don't even care about Rachel's life. Yet you worry if she's happy." Luke thought, if he and Rachel were still okay, he would definitely kill George. Some brother. Seeing the hostility in Luke's eyes, George's slender fingers clenched into a fist. "How can I compare to you? Pulling a knife on your own fiancé. Do you really not regret it?" George thought. The old man must be blind to have chosen such a fiancé for Rachel. Rachel used to persuade her mother to divorce, so why does she tolerate him now? How deep must love be to forgive such folly again and again? George felt a sourness inside, and upon hearing the word regret, Luke felt a tight sensation in his chest, but that irritation soon passed. He owed nothing to Rachel. He had no apologies to make. Moreover, he relished seeing Rachel hurt by him. At least he could still wound her. Thinking about it, Luke tugged at his lips and said elegantly and slowly, "I never regret what I do." I could hear their sarcastic exchanges, and it just made me uncomfortable. The weather at noon was extremely hot. The air conditioning in the old house was insufficient. I could only cling close to the refrigerator. Unknowingly, someone had left the fridge open, and the cool air that leaked out was a relief to me. Unexpectedly, even in death, there are various needs. Speaking of death, looking at the time, I had been dead for half an hour. The bridal shop was still owned by the Collins family. Hadn't it been discovered yet? I was too impulsive, using that Swiss knife. I wonder if it would frighten the staff at the store. Why must my death implicate others? Feeling depressed, I wanted to go and see, but found myself unable to leave the small mansion. Thus, I was forced to watch their love triangle drama unfold. At this moment, Luke was losing his patience. "Cut the crap. Give Tracy back to me," he demanded. Otherwise, he hated it when others took what was his, so he clenched his fists as if ready to reclaim what belonged to him, only to suddenly realize his palm was empty. What was missing? His handsome face suddenly fell, his gaze unfocused, as if he had lost something vital. Right, he remembered, the Swiss knife was gone. Did he bring it with him when he left the bridal shop, or had it been left behind? In the dressing room, he suddenly remembered Rachel's frail body. When he had held the knife to her neck, he saw how thin her neck was, her collarbones, her arms without an ounce of extra flesh. How thin was she? Didn't she eat normally? Luke just remembered that he hadn't made sure she ate on time for a long time. The last time he saw her eating and then suddenly vomiting. He was so furious he kicked over the table. But why did she vomit? He couldn't help but think of the reason they broke up. The fact that Rachel had been violated by another man. It felt as if his heart was tearing apart. What was he doing? He had left both Rachel and the Swiss knife in the dressing room. Seeing Luke's changing expressions, I simply shifted my gaze away indifferently. Had he ever been so anxious about Tracy? Once, he had been that anxious about me, until the gossip tabloids caught me being carried into a hotel room by a man. Due to the angle of the shot, it looked like I hadn't resisted, so no matter how I explained that I had been framed afterwards, Luke was convinced that I had betrayed him. Once, during a meal, I vomited severely due to depression manifesting physically. Luke thought I was carrying another man's child and, in anger, kicked the table. Since then, he had become the person he was now. I shook my head. Whatever. After a while, Tracy finally ran out. It was as if after a struggle, the protagonist who had been fought over finally made a brilliant appearance. She was still a pitiable figure, craving peace. "Stop fighting," she pleaded. "Luke, I won't go back with you. You and Rachel should live well together." She bit her lip, as if she had made a great decision, a significant sacrifice. I watched, guessing Luke would feel sorry for her again. However, the atmosphere was silent at the moment. Luke seemed not to hear, or perhaps he didn't care. Seeing this, Tracy's face gradually turned pale, her tears falling like pearls off a string, and she ran out the door, and I, as if watching a good play, started to laugh. But then, I felt something was not right. Luke stayed there, his thoughts far from Tracy, if not her. Then whom was he pondering over? He looked as if he was about to shatter. Luke. What's going on? Tracy has been crying. George couldn't stand to see Tracy in tears. He intended to go and comfort her, but Luke stopped him. Has Rachel looked for you? Rachel, did I hear that right? Luke was thinking of me. Hearing my name, George's eyes flickered. A hint of regret crossed his face, but only briefly. What does she want with me? At this hour, she should be at home. She's always so carefree. George spoke nonchalantly, then quickly instructed the nanny, Monica. Make a call back to the new house. Monica was our longtime nanny. Over the years, she only took care of the old mansion. She watched me grow up and loved me dearly, yet at that moment, she didn't make the call but stared at me. Yes, it seemed like she saw me. Then I heard her say, I think something bad has happened to the young miss. You should check the bridal shop. Normally, such an out-of-the-blue remark would have made George laugh it off, but he just opened his mouth and said nothing. The next second, he grabbed his coat and headed out. I'll be out for a bit. As he left, he didn't forget to remind Luke, stay here and keep an eye on Tracy. She's depressive, and I'm worried she might do something rash. Luke frowned. Let the bodyguard watch her. I need to go to the bridal shop too. He was cut off mid-sentence. His phone suddenly rang. I leaned in to see. It was a call from the bridal shop. My heart tightened slightly. It must be news of my death. Luke quickly answered the call. Speak. The voice on the other end stuttered. Young master, Miss Rachel was taken away. Someone barged into the fitting room, and we couldn't stop him. I unexpectedly lifted my head. Who would carry away my body? Luke clenched his jaw and asked. Who? Timo. The name came through clearly from the other end of the phone. At that, Luke's expression darkened instantly. Why him? George at the doorway also fell into deep thought. What does he want? And I was just as confused. This man. I did not know him, though I had seen this low-profile financial magnate a few times on financial news. Meanwhile, I felt my cold body being embraced into a warm hold, and inexplicably, a scene appeared before my eyes. In the vision, a man in a suit, very handsome, was holding me. It must be the Timo Luke mentioned. He looked at my pale body and said, I'm sorry. Why was he apologizing to me? Did we know each other? Later, I was placed in a room filled with medical equipment, surrounded by doctors. I didn't know what he was attempting. I was already dead, but his efforts moved me. At least someone was trying to save me. Timo, with a stern face and few words. It might be because he was performing a ritual akin to worship next to my corpse that I was able to witness this scene. I could even hear his thoughts. Rachel, I'm sorry for only coming to find you now. I've read the articles you wrote. How you defended your mother's injustices in her marriage. My mother was like yours, from that moment. I knew you were thoughtful and had self-respect. You weren't the type of woman I had imagined. He gazed deeply at my body, his face filled with regret. Those articles he mentioned were ones I wrote a long time ago, when my mother was still alive. After she passed away, George blamed my confused ideas for her death, which led me to deeply question myself. I stopped writing after that. What did Timo mean by his words? What kind of person am I not? After a while, his slowly spoken thoughts reached me. I thought you were a vain woman, which is why I didn't let you know who I was after that night. His voice, though deep and pleasant, sent chills down my spine. That night he referred to was my first time. It was him. He never showed up again. Was he afraid I'd cling to him? Instantly, all my fond feelings for Timo vanished. When that photo was published by the tabloid, only I was exposed. Timo's face wasn't captured. He remained hidden. I was forced to resign from a job I loved and could only hide away in university to further my studies. So what price did Timo pay? He claimed he was drugged that night and couldn't control himself, taking the opportunity to carry a vulnerable me into a hotel room. I had thought the man I was with was Luke, and missed the window to report it. By the second week, the scandal broke out. Everyone called me a slut, shameless, low. Remembering this, I hugged my knees tighter. I never imagined a soul could feel cold, yet moving away from the refrigerator felt unbearable. Even though it was just early summer, death is truly unbearable, and the person who should be dead isn't me. Meanwhile, Luke and George seemed to be trying to contact Timo. I felt that Timo wasn't responding. I also felt my phone ring. After my death, the phone had remained on my person. Timo answered it. It was from my best friend Chloe, from his thoughts. I deduced he knew through his investigations that Chloe was a trusted friend of mine. He felt guilty towards me and wanted to make amends through her. While I was stunned watching this unfold, Luke and George, unable to reach me, planned to find me. Just then, a bodyguard rushed in saying, "Miss Tracy is standing by the lake. She looks like she's going to kill herself." The air froze for a second. George anxiously said, "This is bad. Tracy has depression." Luke's expression darkened. "What did you say? How did I not know?" George snorted coldly. "What do you know? Have you ever cared about Tracy?" "Indeed, always ready to defend others. But brother, I had depression too. Did you care about me?" "No, you go find Rachel." "I'll check on Tracy." "I'll go too. Rachel isn't going to die." I won't die." I continued to squat next to the refrigerator, watching the room quiet down. Only Monica and I remained in the living room. Monica's eyes were already red. "Rachel, is that really you? Why can you see me?" "I don't know either." "Rachel, how did you?" "Monica, I'm dead. I killed myself." It was then that I realized how hard it was for me to admit that I had attempted suicide. Fortunately, Monica just looked at me with compassion. "Does it hurt?" I paused for a moment, tears falling. "But living hurts more. I caused my mother's death. So my brother hates me. I'm tainted. So Luke hates me." I spoke softly. That was the truth. But upon hearing this, Monica looked at me, shocked. "Why would you think that? How are you tainted? Even if you were. Is Luke so pure? Your mother's death wasn't your fault. She was killed by a robber. Would there have been no danger if she hadn't divorced? You are her only daughter. If she knew you carried this burden," Monica blurted out anxiously. She wouldn't have said this if she saw Rachel more often. Rachel was in the new house, where they wouldn't let her visit. Monica's words offered me a slight comfort. Stepping away from the fridge, I seemed to feel a bit better. However, unbeknownst to me, George was standing behind her. "What are you mumbling about? Rachel is Mom's only daughter. What does that mean?" He had just rescued Tracy from the water and had Luke take her to the hospital. He rushed back to change his clothes, only to overhear this conversation. "Rachel is Mom's only daughter. What about him?" If he and Rachel were not siblings, then what was his endurance? When Luke pointed a knife at Rachel, his patience was a joke. He urgently asked Monica. Of course, Monica dared not say. But I couldn't hold back anymore. Clang! The family portrait in the dining room fell, revealing his origin. He was the orphaned son of my father's business partner, no doubt about it. George collapsed. I thought he was struggling to accept it, but he just muttered to himself, "It's too late. There's no going back. Rachel will never forgive me now." He's overthinking. What forgiveness does a dead person seek? Meanwhile, Luke had taken Tracy to the hospital, but his mind was full of Rachel. Why did Timo take Rachel away? How did Timo suddenly appear? Could it be the man from back then was Timo? Thinking this, his expression turned even more fierce. So Rachel liked Timo. That's why she gave herself to him so willingly back then. But what of it? Rachel was ultimately going to marry him. He would never let Rachel go. Meanwhile, in the high-end hospital room where Rachel's body was kept, the chief physician told Timo there was nothing more they could do. "I'm sorry, Mr. Timo. The patient was beyond saving. Please accept my condolences." Hearing this, Timo wiped his face, nodding helplessly. His heart felt as if something essential was missing, a hollow pain. Over the years, he had been without a woman. Regarding Rachel, while he silently watched over her, he also told himself it was just a fleeting affair. Besides, the Andrews family was not as prominent as the Timo family. He disdained any involvement with Rachel. He was even more wary of her intentions. Only when he realized Rachel was not a social climber did he start to regret. He began to investigate everything about her. Learning of her struggles and hardships over the years, he wanted to save her, yet feared disturbing her. She's gone now. What else could he do? He could do nothing. For the first time, Timo felt utterly powerless, as a soul drifting through the small villa. I also sensed Timo's so-called redemption. Then there was continuous laughter. This man, shameless to the extreme. Soon, I saw Chloe. She had arrived at the hospital. After Timo's assistant explained everything to her, she nearly fainted from crying. She muttered quietly, "Mr. Timo, such a good man. Why didn't you meet him while you were alive? Why did you have to die? What a loss." I shook my head. Chloe was also deceived by him, unexpectedly. A look of deep regret also appeared on Timo's face. I was never meant to be with her in this lifetime. At this point, he felt he had to clarify something. He candidly told Chloe the truth about that night. He said that I was drunk that day, and he had been drugged. It was he who had carried me into the room. Perhaps he thought it was trivial, or maybe, he believed that being graced by his presence was my good fortune, even if it was arbitrary. After saying all this, he solemnly declared, I will marry her, even though she is dead. I will give her a title. He considered himself honest and responsible, but he hadn't expected that Chloe was a girl who focused on the essentials. She sat there, listening quietly, her expression growing worse by the minute. You took advantage of Rachel when she was drunk, afraid she'd cling to you for status. You truly have no shame. Chloe's straightforwardness even made Timo's bodyguard falter, but at that moment, Timo displayed what he thought was magnanimity. I did, he admitted. Fine, I understand now. Chloe suddenly stood up, running into the bustling hospital corridor. She dared to point at Timo's face and burst out. I thought you were Rachel's savior, turns out you're a rapist. Do you know how Rachel has suffered all these years, and you still want to marry her, Mr. Zhou? I've already recorded this and called the police. Wait for your just desserts. Passing ladies, take note, a handsome rich man isn't always a Prince Charming. Beware of such shameless persons. Chloe cursed and shouted, turning on her video and speaker. I felt all this, indescribably happy, yet at the same time, I regretted my suicide. Before. Whether it was being scorched by the sunlight under the bed or being trapped in the small villa feeling cold and hot, I had no regrets, but now, I deeply regretted it. If I hadn't killed myself, I would probably be having dinner in the school cafeteria with Chloe right now, listening to her chirping away, planning the weekend. We could go hiking, go skiing, right? Her family's cat was about to have kittens. I had promised to visit. The stronger my desire to live became, the more I realized I was truly dead. Suddenly, I was no longer afraid of the sunlight. My soul could move freely. I drifted to the hospital and saw my own body, that death certificate with Rachel's name. I witnessed the police taking Timo away. Chloe went as a witness. She said to me on the bed, I'm going to fight for you, sister. Rest well. She walked confidently, like a female general. I wanted to follow her, but I couldn't enter the police station. In the end, I was forced to return to the hospital. While wandering around the hospital, I saw Luke. Luke was absent-mindedly accompanying Tracy. Tracy, on the other hand, was acting coy. I won't throw tantrums anymore. Can you not get married, please? I don't want to lose you. Luke stroked her hair, looking at her face that resembled Rachel's, and chuckled softly. I will never let you go. After I marry her, you'll still be the real Mrs. Lu. Luke wondered how devastated Rachel would be by then, but he felt it was Rachel's debt to him. He loved Rachel so deeply, yet she was fixated on Timo. Luke pushed Tracy away and coldly went outside to make a phone call. Driven by a desire to win, he decided to investigate Timo's worth, only to learn that Timo had been taken away by the police, and all the reasons behind it. What did you say? He forced Rachel back then. Rachel didn't do it willingly. Rachel never mentioned. Luke paused abruptly. He questioned himself deeply. Had Rachel really never mentioned it, or had he simply not wanted to listen? Because that night, he was the one who asked Rachel to drink with him. It was he who, driven by hormones, wanted to keep Rachel at the hotel. Did he manage to keep her? He booked a room for Rachel and turned around when his phone rang. It was Tracy calling. Back then, Tracy was just a junior to him, always curious and inquisitive, not wanting Rachel to misunderstand. He lied about going to the restroom, but in the time it took for that call, Rachel, who was drunk, disappeared. The next day, his fiancé was embroiled in a scandal. All he felt was anger, from start to finish. He never listened to Rachel's side of the story. In reality, the fault was his. But look at what he had done. He had kept a mistress even before getting married. He even planned to make it official after the wedding. He took pleasure in tormenting Rachel. When did he start enjoying seeing Rachel upset? He knew that Rachel couldn't eat when she was upset. She was gagging at the dinner table because she felt unwell, yet, he suspected she was pregnant and considered her unclean. He really was a scoundrel. Frantically, Luke pulled out his phone, scrolling for a while before finding Rachel's number. He dialed it immediately, his mind racing to organize his thoughts. Where should he begin? Should he admit to letting Tracy bully her, or that he had once wanted to harm her with a knife? Could he and Rachel ever go back to how they were? Luke couldn't get through to me. He then remembered the call he just made. You said Timo was incarcerated, but what about Rachel? Rachel is dead. The cause of death is still under investigation. No, you don't even know this. She was your fiancé. His friends couldn't bear to watch. Luke ended the call, feeling utterly blank. The cause of death, Rachel's cause of death. He couldn't wait a moment longer, speeding back to the bridal shop to check the surveillance footage, and in that instant, I couldn't help but follow him there. Also just arriving at the bridal shop was George. George was a family member of Rachel's. He had already received the news. How ironic. Before receiving the news of her death, he had just learned that he wasn't Rachel's real brother, realizing all his restraint had been a joke. So what had he been doing all these years? He pretended he no longer liked Rachel. He pretended Rachel was just an annoying little sister while taking extra care of Tracy, even allowing Tracy to bully her, every little detail. He couldn't even forgive himself. Yet, shamelessly, he wanted to see Rachel. He even wore the suit she had given him years ago. The suit had been left in a corner for a long time and was no longer new, but he wore it anyway. He didn't expect Rachel to forgive him. He just wanted to see her openly, to see her radiant smile, to hear her soft voice. Suddenly, he remembered that he hadn't seen Rachel happy in a long time. It must have been because he hadn't paid her any attention. He vowed to make up for it all. George had planned so much. What he hadn't anticipated was receiving a call from the hospital. Are you George, MS, Rachel's brother? Please come to identify her body. At first, he was sure it was a scam call, cursing Rachel. Had they gone mad? But then, the call from the police, Chloe's call. Chloe's words were sarcastic. Dear brother, your sister is dead. You're not still hoping to be Tracy's backup, are you? It was like a slap to his face. His mind went blank. Rachel was dead. How could that be? He hadn't even had the chance to apologize or to make amends, nor had he had the chance to stop being her brother. He couldn't believe it. The surveillance clearly recorded the entire process of my death. George and Luke stared at the computer. George scoffed. Impossible. It can't be. This video must be fake. Right. Who fabricated it? Rachel has always been optimistic and lively. She wouldn't commit suicide. Luke remained motionless, watching the footage over and over again. He kept asking his employees, this isn't Rachel, right? Tell me. It isn't her. Rachel wouldn't die. She hasn't even become my bride yet. Even after the police took the videotape as evidence, they still couldn't believe it. George smiled calmly. Comrades, please check thoroughly. This video is fake. My sister is very cheerful. She definitely wouldn't commit suicide. The police looked at him, calmly stating, please accept our condolences. According to our investigation, your sister suffered from severe depression and had been receiving treatment for a long time. George was struck as if by lightning. He forced a smile. Impossible. Rachel is a good girl. She wouldn't keep her illness from me. I am her brother. Oh no. I'm not her brother anymore. George was silenced, suddenly feeling empty, no longer a brother. What else could he do? If he couldn't even be a good brother, what else could he be? I watched George, my eyes gently lowered. I didn't know what he was thinking, but we were really nothing to each other. Luke was much quieter than George. He sat quietly, as if waiting for something, until the police took him away. Did you threaten the deceased with a knife? Yes. Why? Unrequited love drove me to thoughts of murder. Take me away. I am guilty. Luke extended his hands willingly, but whether he was guilty, and what the charge would be, was for the police to decide. I didn't want to get involved with him. He threatened me with a knife, just for Tracy, wasn't it? Why cast himself as a romantic when I certainly don't see him that way? Later, my body was sent back home, because it was a suicide. My father and stepmother considered me unlucky and carelessly buried me in a random graveyard, but it was useless. Their company still went bankrupt. When Chloe came to tell me, she cursed them for passing the blame. It was clear that my father's poor management due to old age and George's negligence were the real reasons. Oh, speaking of George, he too frequented my grave. I even saw him flipping through my diary. After Mom died, I kept berating myself in the diary. Maybe my brother was right. I shouldn't have urged Mom to divorce. I caused Mom's death. I won't think about fairness anymore. I'll endure. I'll step back. It's messed up. I had a one-night stand, but I clearly remember it was Luke. It was supposed to be Luke who was to take me back to the room. Where did he go? He blames me. Should I argue, or just let it go? Just endure it. I am also at fault. Maybe stepping back would make things better. George went mad reading it. He repeated a million times, Rachel, it's not your fault, it's your brother's fault. Your brother is a jerk. Initially, George was just embarrassed about our parents' divorce. After losing our mother, he was heartbroken. That's why he took it out on Rachel. He had regretted it long ago. But why didn't he apologize? Rachel, I'm apologizing now. Can you hear me? He knelt in front of the tombstone, his fingertip touching my photo. At that moment, I felt a strange emotion. I was very repulsed. After Luke was released, he always wanted to move me into his family's ancestral tomb, because I was his fiancé. However, every time he tried, either George would stop him, or the weather would be terrible. Oh, and Tracy's wailing. Sometimes she sought out Luke, sometimes George, unfortunately. George and Luke always ignored her. Tracy gradually realized, you two are just using me, aren't you? You like me because I resemble her, right? For the first time, I saw extreme hatred on her gentle face. She used to be so glorious. Both men loved her. Thus, she quit her job early, just waiting to marry into a wealthy family. She was involved with both Luke and George. She liked Luke. She thought if she couldn't have Luke, she could consider George. But now, everything was a lie. These two men. They deceived her so badly. She had given her heart sincerely. Why should her sincerity be trampled like this? That night, the Andrews family's cottage caught fire. Tracy, overwhelmed by anger and despair, set the fire. The fire was fierce. Only the old housekeeper escaped unharmed. George died. I saw it with my own eyes. And he saw me too. Rachel, have you come to fetch me? He held my photo, devoid of the will to survive. You're not my real brother. Why would I fetch you? I came to see how you die. Yes, I still despise him. How could he remain indifferent when he saw Luke attack me with a knife? From that moment, I no longer had a brother. George looked at me until he was swallowed by the flames, and he didn't speak another word. After his death, I never encountered his spirit. In the ruins of the burnt mansion, I stumbled upon words George had written before. Rachel, I don't want to be your brother. I was stunned for a long moment, then it suddenly made sense. That's why he was so harsh to me. So, let's not meet in our next lives. While Tracy was imprisoned for arson, the Collins Family Corporation was found guilty of illegal activities, with Luke's parents involved. Tracy had been with Luke for years. This was her revenge. Luke had no energy left to salvage the situation. Long after the Liu family went bankrupt, I came to know Luke died from excessive drinking. That night, Chloe came to see me again. She rambled on about many things. Timo got what he deserved. Monica lost her job at your place, but I've hired her, so don't worry. You have to wait for me. Don't reincarnate yet. Let's hang out when I pass away. I'll let you in on a secret. We haven't put up the door god decals. You can come over anytime. The mother cat is due tomorrow. Remember to see the kittens being born. But tonight, I need to visit her in her dreams and tell her, once you put up the door god, I won't come to your house anymore. I'm heading somewhere else, not waiting for you. And you must stop thinking about me all the time. Rachel is now just a name etched on a tombstone, while Chloe is still vibrantly alive. Though we're bound to meet again, I'd rather see you later than sooner. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, let's continue to see another similar moving story. 7 days before I was to leave this world, I decided to get along with my parents and be the sensible daughter they always wanted. I stopped making a scene about their favoritism towards my foster sister, Sunny. I no longer felt lost because my childhood friend tried to please Sunny. At first, they scoffed at me disdainfully. You finally look a bit like an older sister. It's about time everyone is happy. Later, they looked at me with confusion. Molly, why aren't you angry? I smiled faintly and said, isn't this what you wanted? Before reconnecting with the system, my relationship with my family had reached an all-time low. The system's voice was calm. The detachment process will take effect 1 week after initiation. Host, I will see you in 7 days. I nodded silently. I lit the candles on the cake beside me. As the candlelight flickered, I clasped my hands together and made my last wish in this world. Just as I was about to blow out the candles, the door was pushed open from outside. My parents, brother, and Sunny walked in, laughing and talking, meeting my gaze. My brother sneered, Mom, no wonder no one goes to her birthday party. She's enjoying it all by herself at home. Upon hearing this, my mother's eyes, previously filled with laughter, turned to disgust. She strode forward, picked up the cake from the table, and threw it into the trash can beside her. I give you a birthday to trouble your own mother, and you still have the face to eat cake at home. My father also looked at me and sighed heavily. Molly, you are getting more and more unreasonable, he muttered under his breath as he walked inside. How did I ever raise a daughter like you? I watched my father's retreating figure quietly, just about to say something. My brother suddenly grabbed me fiercely by the collar. I leaned forward involuntarily due to his force. He gritted his teeth. Molly, do you have to make everyone in the family unhappy to be happy yourself? Have you forgotten how miserable you made Mom before? I faced him with a smile, not uttering a word. If it were before, I would definitely be crying and defending myself, insisting that it wasn't my fault, or I might have asked resentfully, despite being the blood-related family member, why did they favor Sunny, the foster child, over me? But now, with only a week left before I leave, none of these answers mattered anymore. I didn't care either. I defiantly met his gaze. My spirit as unyielding as his chest heaved more visibly, and finally, he violently shoved me away. Molly, you're truly despicable, nowhere close to Sunny. My head knocked against the corner of the coffee table, pain spread throughout my body immediately. Sunny gasped and hurried to help me up. Sister, are you all right? She looked reproachfully at Chandler. Brother, sister seems to be in a lot of pain. Chandler snorted. Don't mind her, she loves to act pitiful. She's just putting on a show for you because she knows you're the kindest. He pulled Sunny away from me, cautioning her. How many times has she deceived you, and yet you still trust her so easily? Be careful not to be tricked. Each word cut like a knife. I took a deep breath, the pain bringing involuntary tears to my eyes as I held my injury and walked towards my room. It doesn't matter, I'm about to leave anyway. I don't care anymore. Today is Mom's birthday. Not long ago, I had a big fight with them over Sunny, and I stormed out slamming the door. Originally, I wanted to use today, Mom's birthday, to mend our relationship. I had bought gifts and a cake early and rushed back from school, but I was met with a locked door at home. When I called, I could hear laughter and joy on the other end. Mom scoffed. You said Sunny was your only daughter from now on, didn't you? Why are you calling now? My hand froze on my phone, trying to keep my voice steady. I came back to celebrate your birthday, Mom coldly replied. How lucky do you think I am to have you celebrate my birthday? I'd be lucky if you don't drive me to my grave. Sunny's sweet voice came through. Mom, come blow out the candles. Mom tenderly responded to her. I'll be right there. Then indifferently gave me an address, as if throwing me a bone, suggesting I should come over. I hesitated for a moment, then replied, then I won't come over. Have fun, since they clearly didn't want me at this gathering, since they had invited relatives, colleagues, and friends over the phone, but no one had informed me. I didn't need to go there just to feel out of place. Before hanging up, Sunny's voice came through again. Mom, was that sister's call? Has sister finally admitted her mistake? Then let her come over quickly. The call ended. I sat outside the door for a long time. Memories of the past 18 years flashed through my mind. Tears involuntarily streamed down. Finally, I used the points accumulated over 18 years to summon the system, requesting to end the mission early. On the other end, a body ravaged by terminal cancer was waiting for me. Suddenly someone pushed open my door. Without turning around, I knew it was Sunny. This was her usual tactic. After a fight with the family, she'd come to me under the guise of comfort and counsel, only to flaunt her superiority. Sister, does it still hurt? She laughed playfully. I don't know how brother could be so strong, to be so harsh on his own sister. Why even come back when you know the whole family dislikes you? Her eyes fell on the shopping bag on the table, clicking her tongue twice. Buying such an expensive gift for Mom, huh? It must not be easy earning money while studying and working, not like me. I get so much allowance from Mom and Dad each month I can't even finish spending it. I've never even had the chance to experience what it's like to work part-time. She laughed proudly. These words, she had said too many times. I had once slapped her face, and once poured a cup of water over her head, but the outcome was always the same, being scolded by Mom, Dad, and brother, with their dislike for me intensifying and their favoritism towards Sunny growing. I had doubted countless times whether it was my personality that made me unlikable, which is why my parents didn't like me. I even went crazy trying to mimic Sunny's tone and expressions, just to gain a bit more familial attention, and I tragically discovered later, it was pointless. No matter what I did, in my parents' eyes, I was just a jealous, petty, selfish, pretentious, bad, and stupid person, while Sunny was the warm-hearted little angel in everyone's heart. Even though she led the bullying and ridicule against me in class, mocking and jeering at me when no one was around, I had tried to tell Mom, Dad, and my brother about all these, but all I got in return were more prejudice and disgust from them. The most recent argument happened when Sunny stole my painting and entered it into a competition, winning a national first prize. I furiously confronted her. She cried, feeling wronged. If my sister would be happy with this award, then I'm willing to give it to her. Enraged, I cursed at her and called her a thief. Yet, my mother slapped me across the face. Shut up, you jealous and incompetent wretch. How did I ever give birth to a daughter like you? I covered my face in disbelief. They might not have loved me before, but they had never hit me. Mom, you might as well pretend you don't have a daughter like me. I ran out of the house and never returned, until today. I thought there might be a chance for things to change, that they were just blinded by Sunny's convincing act. But now I understand, I was just being foolish. Seeing that I remained silent, Sunny's laughter grew even more deranged. What's the matter? Learned your lesson after being hit, not talking back now. I checked my wounds in the mirror, ignoring her. If you like it that much, you can have it all. Perhaps my response was too indifferent. It didn't give Sunny the satisfaction she was expecting. Her smile suddenly vanished, replaced by a menacing scowl. Molly, don't think you're doing me a favor by giving these to me. I earned these on my own. You're just an annoying nuisance. I paused what I was doing and looked at her calmly. Are you done? If you're done, get out of my room. My mom came to bring me some alcohol for disinfection. I reached out to take it, but she pulled my head towards her and started applying it herself. My heart, cold and silent until then, suddenly felt a touch of warmth. Tears stung my eyes. In my original world, I was an orphan. After being reborn into this world, I truly felt the happiness of a complete family for the first time. My parents loved me, my brother doted on me. At 20, completing the task of making my family say they loved me seemed as easy as a giveaway question. Once done, I could be healed back in my original world, but I had already decided that once I completed my mission, I wouldn't go back. Then my dad's close friend and his wife died, and we took in Sunny. Everything started to change direction. Molly, my mom's voice brought me back to the present. I looked up at her, and she rubbed my head. You've been wronged. I'll go scold your brother in a bit. I slowly spoke up. Mom, do you really not want me as your daughter? My mom's expression stiffened, and her tone grew firmer. What are you talking about, child? Your mom would risk her life for you. Have you forgotten? I hadn't forgotten. I silently nodded. She took my hand and gently patted it. Molly, there's something I want to discuss with you. Since you've moved out and will be living on campus after the college entrance exams, how about you clear out your room to turn it into a studio for your sister? I caught my breath. The fleeting moment of tenderness I felt while being disinfected felt like a joke now. I asked quietly, what about when I come back? My mom frowned slightly, already seeming impatient with my questioning. You can just stay in the study for a day or two. You're like a guest in your own home anyway. Despite having heard so many heart-wrenching words before, my heart still ached at that moment. I heard my own voice respond unconsciously. All right, Mom. I looked at her with a smile. Is there anything else my sister would like? I can also give that, as long as you and she are happy. The words she was about to use to persuade me again choked in her throat. A flash of surprise crossed her eyes. Molly, you agree. In the past, when Sunny used their influence to take my things, I always vehemently refused and made a big fuss, but this time, I didn't want to argue anymore. After all, the outcome wouldn't change. After all, I was going to leave. Seeing me nod seriously, the confusion in my mother's eyes turned into a hint of relieved smile. Her gaze shifted to the shopping bag on the table. Inside was the birthday present I had originally prepared for her, a gold butterfly necklace. I bought it with the money I earned from part-time jobs and competitions. Understanding her intention, I voluntarily passed the bag to her. Mom, this is for you. Her eyes brightened with joy, and her tone was filled with surprise. Molly, you've really grown up. It seems that the few days your father kicked you out of the house as punishment really made you reflect and grow. Your brother's lecture just now also had an effect. I smiled bitterly in my heart. A high school senior, kicked out of the house for days, with no concern from her parents, beaten by her own brother until her forehead bled, and no one cared. Instead, she was grateful for it. I suddenly felt it was all so meaningless. I whispered to my mom, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep early. Mom immediately stood up with a smile, then I'll leave first, you get some good rest. I turned off the room lights, lying in bed, calmly adjusting my breathing. It's almost over, Molly, don't be sad. The next day when I woke up, I heard laughter in the living room. I rubbed my eyes and walked out. The moment I appeared, the laughter outside suddenly stopped. Simon looked at me unnaturally and greeted me awkwardly. Molly, you're awake. I nodded and walked to the kitchen to get some water. This childhood friend who grew up with me, when my parents and brother were biased towards Sunny, he firmly stood by my side. He once shared my intense dislike for Sunny, but from what day did he also become Sunny's little follower? Even when I saw Sunny leading the isolation and slander against me at school and turned to him for help, he coldly walked away. Why does everyone like Sunny and not you, Molly? You need to learn to reflect on yourself. After drinking the water, not wanting to be near them, I wanted to head back to my room, but Sunny bounced over to me. Sister, Simon just brought me some super good news. Her smile was bright and unrestrained, like a sunflower under the sun. The gold butterfly on her neck also glittered in the sunlight. I couldn't help but reach out to touch the butterfly. Her eyes sparkled even more. Does it look good? It was originally for Mom, but seeing that I liked it too, she gave it to me. So the necklace I gave to Mom yesterday was meant for Sunny. Mom looked slightly panicked. Molly, don't overthink it, I was told, but I just pursed my lips and smiled. We're all family, it doesn't matter who takes whom. A forced smile stiffened on Mom's face. Then after a pause, she slowly responded, yes, Molly has really become sensible. Sunny innocently pulled me towards the sofa. Sis, you haven't heard the great news about Brother Simon yet. She looked softly at Simon. Brother Simon. Why don't you tell her? Simon's eyes darted around, avoiding mine. The college entrance exam is just a few days away, right? My mom said she'd sign me up for a travel group abroad after the exams. I was thinking of taking Sunny along, so we came to ask Uncle and Auntie for the documents to apply for visas. After speaking, he clenched the hem of his shirt, not daring to look up at me. Mom chimed in with a smile. I'll go get the documents for you right now, as she passed by me. She took my hand. Come with me, Molly. I knew she was worried I might start a scene again. Months ago, on my birthday, Simon had promised to spend it with me. Ever since Sunny arrived, no one remembered my birthday anymore. Every year, it was just Simon and me, lighting candles and eating cake together. But this time, I waited until the cake melted, and he never showed up. The gift intended for me ended up on Sunny's head. That day I clearly felt it. The last important person in my life was slowly drifting away. Fear, panic, and anger filled me. I rushed to the hospital, where my whole family and Simon were fussing over Sunny pretending to be sick. Nobody remembered it was my birthday. I stormed forward and slapped Sunny. The next second, Chandler and Simon both pushed me to the ground. Get out, Chandler glared, pointing at the door. How many times have you bullied Sunny? Simon looked at me, his eyes filled with disappointment. Molly, I can't believe this is who you really are. So, they were probably afraid that hearing Simon was taking Sunny abroad would set me off again today. Mom was eager to get me out of there, but there was no need. I gently pulled my hand away from hers. Mom looked stunned. Then Sunny, with her sweet voice, spoke up. Sis, if I go with Brother Simon alone, will you be upset? If you don't want me to, then I could give up this opportunity. No need. I interrupted her calmly. Have fun. I continued walking to my room with a glass of water in hand. Suddenly, Simon stood up and walked over to me. Molly, I'll bring you a souvenir. His anxious eyes were seeking approval. How strange, when I used to make a fuss about him being so close to Sunny, accusing me of being petty and selfish to the point he didn't want to walk home from school with me anymore. Now that I'm not interfering with their relationship, he suddenly wants to bridge the gap with me again. I shook my head with a smile. Thanks, but I don't need any gifts. Have a good trip. Perhaps it was because I was too calm. As I closed my bedroom door, I could still hear them whispering behind me. How strange, don't you think Molly seems different? Yeah, she used to throw a fit if we didn't include her. Chandler snorted coldly. What right does she have to be angry? Why would Mom's hand be like this if it weren't for her? I silently closed the door. Large drops of blood fell on the hospital floor. In Sunny's third year at our house, Mom received a text message from a kidnapper. Your daughter Molly is in my hands. If you want to save her, come alone to this place with 50,000 yuan. Mom went, only to find that there was no one there but the kidnapper himself, and I was nowhere to be found. During the altercation, the kidnapper slashed Mom's wrist with a dagger. The wound was deep, affecting the nerves. And Mom was a renowned surgical expert. The kidnapper cackled with glee. What a fool. It was your daughter who said just lure you here and ruin one of your hands, and the money would be mine. Don't blame me later. Unaware of all this, I was still at a friend's gathering. It wasn't until Dad stormed into the party, furiously kicking me, that I realized something was wrong. I fell to the ground, looking up at him in pain. Dad, what's wrong? Dad's eyebrows were almost vertical with rage. How dare you ask? If Sonny hadn't found the phone you guiltily discarded, we wouldn't have known about your vicious plot. To think you'd conspire with outsiders to ruin your own mother. Worried about Mom, I didn't stop for details and immediately rushed to the hospital. On the hospital floor, there were still traces of blood. Mom lay on the hospital bed, utterly heartbroken. Molly, even if you were jealous that Dad and Mom adopted Sonny, you shouldn't have tricked Mom into this deadly trap. Molly, I truly regret having you as a daughter. Afterwards, I explained many times, sometimes crying, sometimes calmly. I didn't know how the chat records with the kidnapper appeared on my phone. How could I possibly conspire with a stranger to harm my own mother? But all my explanations were seen as mere stubborn denials. Could it be that Sonny fabricated those chat records? Sonny looked shocked, tears streaming down her face. Sister, in the past, you wronged me and made me take the blame just to please you, and I did because I was just an adopted daughter. But this time, involving Mom's prized career, I absolutely can't cover for you. She spoke righteously, pinning the blame even more firmly on me. From then on, my family viewed me as heartless. But late at night, Sonny came into my room, smirking. Molly, you're really cruel, ruining Mom's favorite career. How could she ever see you as her daughter again? It was you who slandered me, so what if it was? Does anyone believe you? She covered her mouth and left under the moonlight. I collapsed on the floor, just as she said. Afterwards, Mom indeed repeated countless times that she no longer saw me as her daughter. It was almost becoming true. I silently counted down to the ceiling. 5 more days. One evening, Simon stayed for dinner, a table full of dishes. Mom served Simon and Sonny their favorite crab, as it was the season for it. Simon politely thanked her. Sonny acted coy. Brother Simon, I don't want to do it myself. It's too troublesome. Can you help me? Simon indulgently agreed. Mom joked, you're so grown up and still need Simon to take care of you. What will you do when you get married? Dad also laughed. Do I even need to say it? Look at how inseparable they are. Getting married is just a matter of time. My brother seized the opportunity to tease. Sonny is blushing. You two are childhood sweethearts. It's only natural, isn't it? Everyone was chatting happily, their voices grating to my ears. I pretended not to hear, expressionlessly continuing with my meal. Chandler, however, wouldn't even grant me this bit of peace. He tapped on the dinnerware and called my name. Molly, what do you think? I looked up, puzzled. He smirked, but his eyes were cold. Do you think Sonny and Simon are childhood sweethearts, meant to be together? I hesitated for a couple of seconds. He chuckled lightly. You're not still dreaming of fulfilling some childhood joke, hoping to marry Simon yourself someday, are you? I put down my chopsticks, my expression indifferent. No, they are a good match. I wish them a long and happy future together. The whole table fell silent at once. Chandler continued to eat, visibly annoyed. So disappointing, always ruining the mood. Sonny laughed lightly. Oh dear, sister is jealous again. Simon, you better comfort her. Simon looked at me with a complicated expression, but he made no move. Mom placed a crab on my plate. Don't just talk, Molly, eat. This crab is really fresh. I nodded, without touching it. After a few more bites, I wanted to leave the table. Mom, Dad, the college entrance exams are just a few days away. I'll go study. You guys enjoy your meal. Dad stopped me. Wait. I turned around. His eyes were stern. You haven't eaten the crab your mom gave you. Are you trying to upset her on purpose? Sonny propped her elbows on the table, watching my reaction with a smile. Simon looked uneasy and stood up to speak, but I cut him off first. I didn't want to owe him anything, nor did I want to add to any misunderstandings. Mom, Dad, I looked at them with a faint smile. I'm allergic to seafood. If I eat it, it can cause severe breathing difficulties. Have you forgotten? The dining room fell into a deathly silence once again. Simon barely perceptibly let out a deep breath. Before Sunny was adopted, I nearly fainted from eating crab. After discovering the allergy, Mom was extremely remorseful, and seafood never appeared on our dining table again. But after Sunny came, she liked seafood. Gradually, various kinds of seafood returned to our table. No one mentioned my allergy again. Mom finally spoke, hesitant. Is that so? But don't we always buy a lot of shrimp and crab this time of year? You've never mentioned it, Mom. Haven't you noticed that I never eat it? Mom's body swayed slightly. Chandler abruptly stood up, cursing angrily. It seems Sunny likes whatever you're allergic to. Sometimes, people really do laugh when they are at a loss for words. Chandler was unnaturally irritated by my laughter. What do you mean by that? I responded indifferently. If that's what you think, there's nothing I can do. After saying that, I turned and left. I looked around the room, at the place I had lived for 18 years. Just now at the dinner table, Dad brought up the idea of using my room as his studio again. He said, after the college entrance exams, I should move into the study. The few days left before the exams felt like a final gift to me, but it was a gift I no longer wanted. The next day, I made an excuse and didn't go to school. After my parents went to work, I was alone, packing up my things in the room. After entering high school, my parents cut off most of my allowance to teach me discipline. I applied for a scholarship for financially disadvantaged students and worked part-time during the holidays to cover my living expenses. I didn't have many clothes or shoes, yet Sunny had many beautiful princess dresses and the most fashionable outfits for each season. She was the beautiful school belle, while I was disheveled, buried in my studies and part-time jobs. A teacher once mentioned, since we were sisters, why was there such a big difference in our academic performances? Other classmates eagerly defended Sunny. Teacher, Sunny is so beautiful, she's going to be a star in the future. Academic performance isn't that important for her. The teacher shook her head helplessly. She had once earnestly advised Sunny to focus on her studies, but Sunny had arrogantly retorted, Teacher, I'm not like you, relentlessly studying only to end up as a working mule. My parents' money will eventually be mine, and I'll earn more in a day as an artist than you will in your lifetime. You should stop meddling. Nobody wants to offer unsolicited help that isn't appreciated. The teacher gradually stopped bothering about her, and Sunny was pleased with this. But I was curious, how long could Sunny live in this tower of lies and fantasies she had built? I packed all the clothes and shoes I wasn't wearing into a suitcase and threw it in the garbage bin downstairs. Before Sunny arrived, I also put away the gifts my parents had given me and distributed them to the kids playing in the square below. The other things that took up space and couldn't be taken with me, I took in a taxi to a deserted area in the suburbs, and burned them all. The smoke choked me, making me cough incessantly, tears streaming down my face. When I first came to this world, my goal was to complete my mission and return to my original world in good health. I called out, Daddy, and Mommy, in my sweet, childish voice, feeling their selfless love. That feeling was so blissful. The first time in my 2 lives I felt parental love. I learned to love them more, unreservedly. But after Sunny appeared, I was repeatedly neglected, ignored, blamed, and disliked. I then understood, sometimes, never having something is also a form of happiness, at least. It doesn't bring the pain of loss, to possess, and then to lose it all so abruptly. It's too torturous. I watched as the flames in front of me gradually grew larger. Finally, it flickers out. It turns into a pile of powdery ashes. My heart gradually comes to terms with it all. The love I can't have, I shall relinquish. At night, I moved into the study. For several days, no one noticed. After all, it had been a long time since my parents came to chat with me in the evening. I spent the night sleepless, bidding my final farewell to this world. Tomorrow would be the second day of the college entrance exams. It would also be the day I leave this world. In the morning, unusually, no one in the family went to work. Mom, smiling, brought me soy milk and advised, Molly, eat up, fill yourself with energy for the battlefield. Dad also unexpectedly gave me a smile, telling me not to be nervous. Sunny drank her soy milk and looked at me thoughtfully. I thought she was jealous of the attention my parents were giving me, but it wasn't until we were about to leave, and I started feeling sharp pains in my stomach, that I understood the meaning behind her gaze. She had drugged my soy milk. Yes, how could she allow me to perform well? Wouldn't that just draw more attention to me? Who would care about her then? Seeing me clutching my stomach in pain, Chandler looked impatient. Why do you always have so many problems? Sunny also pretended to care. Sister, you're just nervous about the exam, aren't you? You're really too timid. Chandler laughed out loud. I guess you're afraid of embarrassing yourself if you perform poorly, and now you don't dare to go, and to think you always say you're the top of your class. I bet those grades are all copied. I couldn't be bothered to argue, but suddenly, Mom sternly stopped him. Chandler, shut up. How can you speak to your sister like that? Chandler was taken aback, unbelievingly staring at Mom. Mom, are you possessed? Don't you know how much she loves to play the victim and act dumb? Mom's expression instantly became complicated. I didn't have time to listen to their family's mockery any longer. I pulled open the car door and ran back towards the house. I'm going to use the bathroom first. You guys go ahead, I'll follow shortly. But a few minutes later, someone else entered. Chandler's voice followed. Mom and Dad went to drop Sunny off at the exam venue. They asked me to take you. He laughed smugly. But I'm not driving you, the liar. Figure it out yourself. My body felt awful, but my mind was eerily calm. Not a trace of sadness remained. Through the door, I called out to him, Brother, when did you start to hate me? When we were kids, you doted on me like crazy. There was silence from outside, too quiet for Chandler. I sighed. It was after Sunny arrived, wasn't it? She really is great, and I'm really not. She deserves to be your sister, right? Still silence. Then, a few minutes later, the sound of the front door closing. Chandler had left. The system's voice appeared again. Do you still want to go to the exam venue? I can teleport you there, but you're leaving anyway, so the exam results don't really matter anymore. I hesitated for a moment and then nodded. I needed to go, losing a daughter who could have boasted of high scores. I wonder if they would regret it. When the bells signaling the end of the exam rang, I put down my pen and turned to look out the window. It was nearing evening, yet the summer sunset was still fervent. Birds flew past the window, landing on the banyan tree, chirping noisily. I followed the crowd out of the school, slowly walking towards an unknown direction. I chatted with the system, off and on, about my experiences over the past 18 years. The system was quite moved. Host, you have worked hard. I took the opportunity to act spoiled. Then, in light of my hard work, can you restore the health of my body in my original world? The system fell silent. I laughed, no longer troubling it. I had lived 18 extra years. That was enough. I smiled and looked up, but my expression changed instantly. A car seemed out of control, speeding towards the pedestrian crossing. A little girl, just a few years old, was being led by her mother towards this area. They seemed completely unaware of the fast-approaching car. Watch out, I shouted and ran towards them. The moment I pushed the little girl and her mother away, my body was heavily struck by the front of the car. My body flew into the air. Seeing the little girl, now crying, safely held in her mother's arms, I half closed my eyes in relief. Leaving like this seemed to have a bit more meaning. The next second, a familiar voice reached my ears. Honey, did you hit someone? Someone got out of the car, trembling as they touched me. Then, a cry of alarm. It's Molly. I struggled to open my eyes, my lips curving into a wry smile. The car that hit me, it turned out to be my family's. Dad was driving, Mom was in the passenger seat, coming to pick up Sunny from her exam. Molly, don't close your eyes. Hang in there. Mom is taking you to the hospital right now. Seeing Dad still trembling in panic beside us, Mom shouted, hurry up. I felt my body being lifted up. The embrace was warm, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. Dad's voice trembled. Molly, Molly. Dad is taking you to the hospital now. Sunny's voice also rang out, but I could no longer hear clearly. I slowly closed my eyes, ready to leave. I gently held Mom's hand in response. Molly, what do you want to say? Mom, don't cry. I gasped for air. Just pretend you never had me as a daughter. After saying that, I completely lost consciousness. When I heard noises again, I was already a soul, floating outside the operating room with the system. The doors of the operating room swung open from the inside out. Mom and Dad immediately rushed up to inquire about the situation from the doctor. Sorry, the patient suffered internal organ damage and excessive blood loss. Her physical condition was also poor, and we did all we could. Hearing the declaration of my death, Mom seemed to collapse to the ground in an instant, her eyes brimming with tears. She clutched at the doctor's coat, murmuring, how could this happen? How could she die? Dad's body shook and he collapsed against the wall with a thud. Only Sunny, a slight smile curling at the corner of her mouth, pretended to be sad as she stepped forward to comfort her mother. "Mom, don't be sad. You still have me as your daughter." But the next second, Mom pushed her away forcefully. Sunny also fell to the ground. She looked at her mom, puzzled. Mom was trembling all over, her eyes bloodshot as she pointed at Sunny. "You are not my daughter. It must have been you who stole my daughter's life. That's why she died." Chandler arrived just in time, pulling Sunny into his arms. He raised his voice, "Mom, you're scaring Sunny." But Mom took another step closer to them. She grabbed Chandler's shirt forcefully and demanded, "Didn't I ask you to pick up your sister? Why was she alone when the accident happened?" Chandler was stunned. The next second, Mom slapped him hard. "Can't you even tell who your sister is?" I watched the chaos unfold before me, feeling utterly unmoved. The system shook its head. Such late realization is truly disgusting. Suddenly enlightened, I turned to look at it. Why did I suddenly appear in front of Mom and Dad's car to save someone? That's not the way they usually come home. The system sighed heavily. "You've had a tough 18 years. I couldn't help using a little trick." I laughed. This cold system has its cute moments. I thought my story here was about to end. I asked the system when I could leave. They were too noisy. I didn't want to watch anymore, but the system said to wait a bit longer. Someone else was yet to arrive. Curious, I looked towards the end of the hallway. Just then, I saw Simon running like mad, followed by a police officer and a teacher. I thought the police were here to deal with a traffic accident involving my dad and me. But the police handcuffed Sunny instead. Everyone was shocked. Dad exclaimed, "Officer, what's going on? What happened to my daughter?" Chandler, like a ruffled chicken, screamed and shouted, "Let go of my sister." A sharp reprimand from the police quieted them down. The police officer looked around coldly. "Based on audio evidence provided by student Simon, we suspect Sunny is involved in a kidnapping and assault case." Everyone was stunned. Sunny, eyes red with tears, stared at Simon in disbelief. Simon stepped forward, lifted his phone, and played the recording. "Sunny, did you arrange for the kidnappers to injure Auntie's wrist?" Sunny's voice was groggy, slurred with intoxication. "Yeah, those were the kidnappers I hired, faking the chat records between Molly and the kidnappers." She giggled, but her stupid parents and brother believed it, made her the scapegoat, while they treated me like a treasure. Ha 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 ha. Sunny's laughter echoed down the hallway. I took a deep breath. Mom and Chandler were already seething with rage at the recording. Sunny tried to grab the phone to stop the recording, but the police restrained her. "Don't move." Sunny glared at Simon, her eyes bloodshot. "All these days, your gentle care for me, was it all an act? Intentionally getting close to me was just to trick me into confessing, seeking justice for Molly." Everyone looked toward Simon, under their gaze. He slowly nodded and gave Sunny a cold sneer. "Molly and I grew up together. You don't need to tell me what kind of person she is." Suddenly, Sunny gave a sorrowful smile. "What a pity, your Molly is already dead." Simon was stunned, his gaze shattered. He slowly turned to look at my parents. He collapsed in despair under their lifeless eyes. The system and I were both shocked, unable to speak. The system clicked its tongue twice. "Host, you misunderstood this passionate soul." Before I could react, another twist occurred. My mother, holding a key, suddenly approached Sunny. Before anyone could react, she forcefully plunged the key into Sunny's eye. "Bitch, give me back my daughter." Many people attended my funeral. By then, Sunny was already in prison, and my mother had also been arrested and was awaiting trial. The mother and daughter I had saved came to bow before my spirit and prayed for me to be reborn well. The classmates who had bullied me were forced by Simon, with evidence in hand, to come and repent before my spirit. After everyone left, Simon wept aloud alone. He rambled about how he had neglected me recently, his sadness and guilt. He lamented that he was too late in exposing Sunny, which led to my painful death. He cried for so long that I went from crying with him to silently comforting him, and then to being headache-ridden by his lamentations. Finally, I was helpless. "System, save me." The system smirked and snapped its fingers. Simon's body slanted, and he fainted. I was amazed. "That's impressive." The system's mouth hung open in surprise. "I didn't even do anything." He must have cried himself unconscious. On the day the college entrance exam results were announced, my dad and Chandler took my scores to the prison. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged 10 years, his hair completely white. "Honey, Molly scored top in the college entrance exams. We should be happy for her." Through the glass, My mother touched the score on the screen and broke down in tears. My excellent and filial daughter, how could she just die like this? Tears streamed down her face. As the news of my becoming the top scorer in the college entrance exam spread, many past life experiences of mine were also dug up. Countless relatives and friends called to congratulate my dad on having such an excellent daughter. They still didn't know that I had died. Reporters also called to interview. Somebody captured a photo of Molly sleeping on a park bench before the college entrance exam. Everyone is curious why. Dad was stunned. He probably remembered those days when I was kicked out of the house and had nowhere to go but to sleep in the park. Thankfully, I didn't encounter any harm. The reporter continued to inquire, with such an excellent daughter, you and your wife must have doted on her a lot. As Dad and Chandler returned home, they saw children playing around in the apartment complex. Suddenly, upon seeing a music box in a little girl's hand, Chandler was shocked. He hurried forward, snatched the music box, and interrogated the little girl about where she got it. The little girl cried out in fright, and her mother pushed him away protectively. This was given to us by a girl a few days ago. Are you sick? Tears instantly welled up in Chandler's eyes, his voice rough. Please sell it to me, I'll pay any amount. He bowed his head deeply, covering his heart, as if in unbearable pain. This belongs to my sister. It's the birthday gift I gave her. As the leaves rustled in the wind, the system and I turned to leave. The enlightenment and regret bought by my life were not worth being moved by. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the hospital bed in my original world. The system spoke in a calm voice. Host, considering that you saved 2 lives before returning, the Strategy Management Bureau has decided to restore your body to health in your original world. He paused. Kindness always pays off. Host, I wish you a happy rest of your life. I was stunned for a long time. I have finally come to accept this fact. For the rest of my life, I will be happy. After hearing the 2 stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.